She was 30 minutes away from saying I do, dress on, flowers in hand, heart full, when she found her parents' name cards tucked at the very last table in the venue, right next to the kitchen trash can. Her name was Fonda, a 29-year-old nurse practitioner who grew up in a small working-class town in Ohio. Her father, Dave, had spent over 3 decades as a plumber, calloused hands, early mornings, and a small but fully paid-off house to show for it. Her mother, Linda, served lunch to hundreds of school children every single day, knew every kid by name, and quietly slipped extra portions to the ones who looked hungry. They weren't wealthy, but they were good, deeply, genuinely good. And Fonda never forgot where she came from. 2 years before the wedding, Fonda met Garrett at her clinic. He was charming, confident, and came from one of the wealthiest families in the region. The kind whose name appeared on country clubs, commercial buildings, and entire neighborhoods. She fell hard and fast. But from the very first dinner with his mother, Constance, something quietly nagged at her. Constance arrived in cream silk and pearls, smiled with perfect teeth, and within minutes brought up Garrett's previous girlfriend, a doctor's daughter. The message was clear, even if the words weren't. Still, Fonda told herself Constance just needed time. She was wrong. Wedding planning was hijacked before it even began. Constance chose the venue, the family's own country club. She chose the decorator, the menu, and the guest list order. When Fonda's mother quietly suggested bringing her famous home-cooked appetizers, Constance smiled tightly and replied, "That's very sweet, Linda. But this is a formal seated dinner, not a backyard cookout." Fonda swallowed the insult whole. Garrett squeezed her hand and whispered, "Just let her have this one, babe. After the wedding, it's just us." She believed him. That was her first mistake. But nothing could have prepared her for what she discovered when she walked into that reception hall, just 30 minutes before the ceremony. What she found at table 14 would change everything. And once she saw it, there was no going back. She walked into that reception hall 30 minutes before her own wedding, and what she saw at table 14 made her stomach drop to the floor. The hall was breathtaking. Tall white floral arrangements, crystal glassware catching candlelight, round tables draped in ivory linen, each one perfectly positioned closer to the sweeping stage where she and Garrett would soon exchange vows. Fonda moved through the room slowly, soaking it in, until her eyes landed on a small folded name card near the back wall. Dave and Linda Marshall. Her parents. She blinked, looked around, then looked down. Their table, table 14, was pushed against the far back corner of the room, partially hidden behind a decorative partition. And just 2 feet away, barely concealed by a velvet curtain, sat the kitchen's waste collection bins. The faint smell confirmed it. Her parents had been seated next to the trash. Not by accident. Not an oversight. Every other table had been placed with deliberate precision, centerpieces measured to the inch, lighting angled perfectly. This was intentional. Fonda's hands were trembling as she found Garrett in the bridal suite hallway, still adjusting his cufflinks, laughing at something on his phone. "Garrett." Her voice was quieter than she expected. "Have you seen where your mother seated my parents?" He looked up, and for just a second, just a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face. Not surprise. Not confusion. Recognition. "Babe, it's just seating. Let's not do this right now. They're next to the garbage, Garrett." He exhaled slowly, ran a hand through his hair, and lowered his voice. "Look, my mother handled the arrangements. There were a lot of important guests to consider. Business contacts, family connections. Your parents will be fine back there. They won't even notice." They won't even notice. Fonda stood very still. Something inside her, something she had been quietly ignoring for 2 years, finally went silent. She turned to walk away. But before she reached the corner, she heard voices through the slightly open door of the adjoining room. Constance's voice, crisp, composed, unmistakable. "She's a sweet girl, but honestly, Garrett, a plumber's daughter. At our club. I simply couldn't have them front and center. You understand?" A pause. Then Garrett's voice, low, calm, completely unbothered. "Yeah, I know. It's fine, Mom." 3 words. It's fine, Mom. Not don't speak about her family like that. Not those are my future in-laws. Just, it's fine. Fonda pressed her back against the wall. The bouquet in her hands suddenly felt very heavy. In that moment, standing in that hallway in her wedding dress, Fonda made a decision. Not out of anger. Not out of tears. Out of something far more powerful, absolute clarity. She knew exactly what she was going to do next. And no one in that building saw it coming. She was standing in her wedding dress, bouquet in hand, guests already seated, and she had just made the calmest, most terrifying decision of her life. Fonda didn't cry. She didn't storm. She straightened her back, took one long breath, and walked, not toward the altar, but straight to table 14. She pulled out both chairs. Sat down between her parents. Her father looked confused. Her mother reached for her hand instinctively, the way mothers always do when something is wrong even before a word is spoken. Mom. Dad. Fonda's voice was steady. We're leaving. Honey, her father started. We're leaving, she said again. Softer this time. But final. She stood, set her bouquet gently on the table. White roses, 24, handpicked, and walked back through the hall. Past the crystal glasses. Past the perfectly angled centerpieces. Past 200 guests who had gone completely, utterly silent. She never looked at the altar. She never looked for Garrett. She walked straight out the front door. The fallout was immediate and loud. Garrett called, 17 times that night. Constance sent a letter, formal and cold, suggesting Fonda had embarrassed their family in front of their community. Fonda didn't respond to either. What she did do, 3 weeks later, was take a pregnancy test. Positive. She sat on the edge of her bathroom sink for a long time. Then she called her mother. Linda drove over without asking a single question, knocked once, and simply held her daughter while she processed every emotion at once. The decision wasn't easy. But it was clear. She would keep the baby. She would raise this child, surrounded by the exact people who had always loved her without condition. The plumber. The school cafeteria worker. Her people. Months passed. Fonda moved back home temporarily, saved aggressively, and quietly built something new. She filed for legal recognition of Garrett's parental responsibility, not for herself, but for her child's future. Garrett's family, so concerned with appearances, settled quickly and privately. Her daughter was born on a Tuesday in early spring. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with her grandfather's stubborn chin and her grandmother's wide, curious eyes. Dave cried in the hospital hallway, the kind of cry a man who spent 30 years holding everything together finally lets out when something pure and good arrives in the world. Linda just laughed and laughed. Fonda never regretted walking out. Not once. Because she learned something standing in that hallway in her wedding dress, something no venue, no ceremony, and no country club membership could ever teach. The people who seat your parents next to the trash will eventually treat you the same way. She just chose to leave before they got the chance. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've ever had to walk away from something that looked perfect on the outside, the comments are open. You're not alone.